so on this one, I'm gonna go ahead and look at the bumper and see what it looks like so far on the car, as I've done all these things to it. Right. So there's still things I gotta do in 4 certain areas: add material, fiberglass, you name it. This session, I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can add some body filler in this area. That way this area can be nice and flush, because right now you see that's not good. That's what's happening, and that's the same thing on the other side. So once I have this thing pretty much finished, I can go ahead and sand it down and add this wheel well design with the material. So what I'm doing here is just sanding off some of this stuff. It's a lot of work, guys. Continuing to sand this off until I get a nice feathered area. And also I'm going to start in this session. We have finished off what I did initially with the putting in these contour lines. I mean, if you see it here, you see that where it starts and then it keeps going, and you will see that contour line. If I go zoom out, you can actually see what's going on with the contour line. I can go ahead and remove my front bumper cover and finish off this contour line. Since I know exactly where it's supposed to be, I can go ahead and remove it and just make it more rounded off like this part. And I can do that by simply covering up this area with a masking tape, and then putting material on here, let these 2 pieces join together, and then add material on top and start rounding it off. Okay, so there's that sharp edge, and that is one of those things where we want to get rid of. Yeah, there's a big gap right here is because this thing hasn't been lifted up. There's another screw that goes on here, and that keeps it from falling down. Didn't want to get ahead of myself again, so I went ahead and started trimming down these fiberglass parts that I recreated. Remember, I was going to go ahead and make this straight. Obviously I cut this a little bit at an angle. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, but I'm going to go put this whole thing back in the car so I can see where I'm going to cut, because I don't want to cut too short and, you know, I have to redo it again. So I want to go ahead and stay away from that. Okay, so I almost forgot to drill the hole, and I almost drilled an incorrect hole, because remember, there was the first initial hole, and then this is the new hole, and I almost messed up. So I didn't drill enough where I'm like, oh no, I can always fill it with epoxy, and that should solve that mystery. That should solve that problem. But the hole is good. Now we can go ahead and set it up. Okay, so here we are. I'm getting ready to put this thing on with the holes that I redid because I covered them up when I was putting the fiberglass to make this extension, right? So I'm going to cut, I don't know where to cut, so I have to put the whole bumper so I can find out exactly where I'm cutting. But the problem is that I ran into this issue where this thing is way too wide, so look what happens. Right? It's too wide, it's not coming in here all snugly like it was before. So I'm going to have to remove the bumper and start trimming this to how it was initially. So I'm going to have to do this on this side and the other side. So let's go ahead and take this off. Alright, YouTubers, here we go. So we finally aligned this thing. We put the front bumper back, seeing if everything was aligned correctly, and it is. Now I can go ahead and trim it off. Trim off the X's, make sure I don't damage this part. I managed to trim off and sand off the excess and make it nice and pretty, and this is how it's going to look so far. I haven't put any body filler yet, but so far after trimming, and see, it's starting to look very nice. That's what we're looking for. Now in this area If I look at the original one, the original bumper, and as you can see, it has this like an L shape on here. So this part comes out. We can do the same thing with this one. But at this point, we're just going to leave it there because I want to make sure I get this wheel well design. I did the same thing to the other side. So it's starting to come out. I see that little part that's sticking out. You see it right there. That's why this thing right here has been cut off, because then you'll see it. So we'll go ahead and cut this off once I take this thing off. No big deal. But before I take it off, I'm going to go ahead and mark it. That way I know where to cut off. Now, it's good to have something like this. That way when you remove this, because I was removing this thing, I was bringing it down and then it was trimming and then putting it back up. Okay, so I took the bolts off. Now I can go bring it down. See that? Now from here I can go and start trimming. You can see this is why you want to mark it, because once you start putting it back, you're like, uh-oh, how in the hell do I know which is, because there's a lot of playroom, see? So by having this, you can go ahead and align it again, and now you know where it is. I mean, that's the whole point of having these little things. It's nice to have marking more. Now I got to worry about is filling this area and trimming these things right here before I start body filling. So let's go ahead and do that, and I can show you how it looks like.